Madagascar is 250 miles from Africa. Its closest neighbor is Mozambique. Its people speak a language from Borneo, 3,000 miles away in Southeast Asia. That makes no sense, and for centuries, no one could explain how. The DNA says something impossible happened. In 2025, geneticists sequenced 100 ancient genomes from across Madagascar. They compared them to populations in Borneo, East Africa, and the islands in between. What they found should not exist. The genomes did not point to Africa. They pointed somewhere else entirely: Borneo. The first people of Madagascar were not African fishermen. They were not accidental castaways. They were Austronesian voyagers who crossed 1,200 miles of open ocean. And then, genetic evidence suggests, they established early contact with Bantu-speaking Africans along the East African coast. Two worlds, one people. A deliberate fusion written in their DNA. For centuries, historians told a simple story. Madagascar was discovered by chance. African fishermen drifted across the Mozambique Channel. Arab traders stopped on their Indian Ocean routes. Later, Europeans arrived. The Malagasy people were a mix of all these accidental arrivals. This explanation made sense, except for one detail that refused to fit. The Malagasy language, Malagasy, is not African. Linguists kept coming to the same conclusion. The language did not belong here. It belongs in Borneo, 3,000 miles away. How does a language travel 3,000 miles across open ocean without a people to carry it? It doesn't. The language was a ghost. The people who spoke it had vanished from the historical record. For generations, scholars debated. One camp said the language was proof of an ancient migration from Southeast Asia. The other said it was coincidence, a linguistic anomaly that meant nothing. Both had evidence, neither could prove their case. How did a language from Borneo end up in Africa? The answer came from a place historians could not argue with: the genome. The 2025 study, published in Nature, sequenced 100 ancient genomes from archaeological sites across Madagascar. The researchers compared them to modern and ancient populations in Borneo, East Africa, and the islands in Southeast Asia. The results were unambiguous. The first settlers of Madagascar were Austronesians from Borneo. They arrived around 1,200 years ago. Their DNA matched the same populations that today inhabit the Burrito River Valley. But here is where the story turns. These Bornean settlers did not stay isolated. Genetic evidence shows they mixed with Bantu-speaking Africans, not only from the nearby coast of Mozambique, but also from populations further inland in the Great Lakes region of East Africa. The DNA proves it, because the fathers and mothers told two completely different stories. The paternal lineages, the Y chromosomes passed from father to son, were predominantly Austronesian. Bornean markers like haplogroups O2A and O1B dominated. These lineages trace back to the farmers who first cultivated rice in the river valleys of Southeast Asia, thousands of years before they set sail across the Indian Ocean. The maternal lineages, the mitochondrial DNA passed from mother to child, were predominantly African. Bantu markers like haplogroups L0, L2, and L3 dominated the Malagasy gene pool. These lineages trace back to the people who spread farming across sub-Saharan Africa, carrying their languages and their genes from Cameroon to the Great Lakes and beyond. A 2014 study in the American Journal of Human Genetics had already suggested this pattern. The Malagasy gene pool was roughly 50-50, Southeast Asian and African, but the timing remained uncertain. The 2025 study pinned it down. The first Austronesian settlers arrived around 800 CE. Within a few generations, they had established contact with East Africa. By 900 CE, the Malagasy people were a stable, integrated population. Austronesian fathers, African mothers, a language from Borneo, a home in Africa. Which raises an uncomfortable question. How did people from Borneo reach Africa 1,200 years ago? The Austronesians were the greatest seafarers in human history. They crossed the Pacific Ocean in outrigger canoes. They settled every island from Madagascar to Easter Island. Their voyages spanned half the planet, but Madagascar was their westernmost settlement. To reach it, they had to cross the Indian Ocean, 1,200 miles of open water with no islands in between. They did it with outrigger canoes, woven sails, and knowledge of the stars. Their boats were not primitive. They were sophisticated machines capable of crossing oceans, carrying families, livestock, and rice seed for planting. These were not explorers, these were settlers. And the timing may not be a coincidence. The 2025 study notes that their arrival coincides with the rise of the Sriwijaya Empire in Sumatra, a maritime power that controlled the Strait of Malacca and dominated Indian Ocean trade. The Sriwijaya Empire was the hub of a trading network that stretched from China to East Africa. Their ships carried spices, silks, and gold, and they may have carried something else: people. The Austronesian settlement of Madagascar was not an accident, it was an expedition. Let's address the misconceptions directly. The first settlers of Madagascar were not African fishermen. The DNA proves they came from Borneo. They were not accidental castaways. They sailed 1,200 miles across open ocean with purpose and skill. They did not mix with Africans by chance. Genetic evidence suggests sustained contact with populations along the East African coast, creating a deliberate fusion of two worlds. Madagascar was not discovered, it was settled. And the people who settled it were not one people, they were two, joined by intention. But here's the question the data cannot answer. Who made the first contact? Did Austronesian voyagers sail to Africa and return with wives? Or did African traders, fishermen, or migrants cross to Madagascar first, encountering the Austronesian settlers already there? The genetics cannot tell us. The language suggests Austronesian men married African women, but that pattern could emerge from many scenarios. What is clear is that both worlds contributed, both survived, both became something new. What does this tell us about who the Malagasy really are? They are Austronesian in language and paternal lineage. They are Bantu in maternal lineage and cultural practice. They are a fusion that should not exist, and yet they have thrived for 1,200 years. The voyage that brought them together was one of the great achievements of human seafaring. The society they built is one of the great examples of deliberate multiculturalism. The Malagasy language carries words from Borneo. Their DNA carries markers from two continents. Their history carries the memory of a voyage that should have been impossible. Today, the Malagasy people are the living proof. They are not African. They are not Southeast Asian. They are both, and they have been both for longer than most nations have existed. But the genome does not forget, and sometimes it remembers voyages that history almost erased. The Austronesian sailors who crossed the Indian Ocean left no written records. The Bantu women who became their partners left no diaries. Their story survived only in the DNA of their descendants. The genome does not forget. You carry your own hidden ancestors, threads stretching across oceans you've never seen, encoded in your DNA, waiting to be explored. The people who settled Madagascar did not drift. They sailed, they planned, they chose, and their choice is still written in the blood of millions today. If you want to find your own hidden ancestors, subscribe to GenealogyX, because the past is not what you thought, and it is closer than you think.